"There's room in my heart for you this Christmas," he said to the Apache mother fleeing with her. Snow began falling early that winter, covering the mountain roads and the wide ranch lands in a quiet white silence. The small town below the hills was already preparing for Christmas. Lights hung from wooden fences, and warm music played softly from shop windows, but Daniel stayed away from most of it. He lived alone on a ranch just outside town, surrounded by open land, tall pine trees, and memories he rarely allowed himself to revisit. Daniel was known as a hardworking man who kept to himself. People respected him, but they also knew he preferred distance. Since losing his family years ago, he had built a life focused on routine. Every morning started before sunrise. He fed the horses, checked the fences, and fixed whatever needed repair. Work kept his mind steady. Silence kept his heart safe. On that particular evening, he drove into town for supplies before another storm arrived. The sky had turned gray, and the cold wind carried sharp snowflakes that stung against the skin. The store was busy with people buying decorations, gifts, and food for the coming holiday. Daniel picked up only what he needed: feed, tools, and some groceries. He avoided long conversations, offering only polite nods when someone greeted him. As he left town, the snow began falling harder. The road leading back to his ranch curved through hills and forest. Visibility grew worse, and he slowed his truck, focusing on the path ahead. That was when he noticed something unusual: a figure walking along the roadside. At first, he thought it was just a shadow or a tree branch moving in the wind. But as he drove closer, he saw a woman carrying a child. She walked carefully, her steps slow and heavy, her shoulders tense against the cold. The child was wrapped in a blanket that looked too thin for the weather. Daniel drove past them at first. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. He had learned not to involve himself in situations he didn't understand. But after a few seconds, he glanced in the rearview mirror. The woman continued walking without stopping, determined but clearly exhausted. Something inside him shifted. Maybe it was the sight of the child's small form, or maybe it was a memory he never fully escaped. He slowed down, then stopped the truck. Snow gathered on the windshield as he hesitated, debating with himself. Finally, he reversed carefully and pulled up beside them. The woman turned slightly, her eyes alert and cautious. She held the child closer, as if ready to protect her from anything. Daniel rolled down the window. "Road's getting bad," he said gently. "You shouldn't be walking out here in this weather." She didn't answer immediately. Her silence showed both strength and caution. After a moment, she nodded once. "I just need to reach town," she said quietly. Daniel looked at the child, who appeared tired but calm. The wind pushed snow across the road, and he knew the storm would only grow worse. "I can give you a ride," he offered. "Storm's coming fast." The woman hesitated again. Trust did not come easily to her either, but the cold made the choice for her. After a long pause, she opened the door and helped the child climb inside. "I'm Tala," she said softly as they settled into the truck. "Daniel," he replied. The drive continued in silence for a while. The heater warmed the cab, and the child slowly relaxed, leaning against her mother. Daniel focused on the road, but he noticed small details: Tala's tired expression, the way she remained alert, and the quiet strength she carried. "Where are you coming from?" he asked carefully, not wanting to sound intrusive. "Far," she answered. Her voice was calm but guarded. He didn't push further. As they approached town, Daniel saw flashing lights ahead. A roadblock had been set up. A local officer stepped forward and informed drivers that the main roads were closing due to heavy snow. Travel would be limited until the storm passed. Daniel glanced at Tala. She looked worried but said nothing. "Do you have somewhere to stay?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. The situation grew complicated. Hotels would likely be full, and with the roads closing, options were limited. Daniel felt the familiar urge to step away from responsibility, but he couldn't ignore the reality in front of him. "My ranch isn't far," he said after a moment. "You can stay there until the storm clears." Tala looked at him carefully, measuring his sincerity. Trust was a fragile thing, especially for someone who had clearly faced hardship. "It's only temporary," he added quickly, unsure why he felt the need to explain. After a long silence, she nodded. They turned away from town and drove toward the ranch. Snow covered the landscape like a thick blanket, making everything quiet and distant. When they arrived, Daniel helped carry their small bags inside. The house was simple but warm. A wood stove crackled softly, and the scent of pine filled the air. Tala looked around, taking in the space cautiously. The child smiled faintly, clearly relieved to be somewhere warm. Daniel showed them a spare room, feeling slightly awkward. He was not used to having guests. The house had felt empty for so long that their presence changed the atmosphere immediately. As night settled, they shared a simple meal. Conversation remained light and careful. Tala spoke mostly about her daughter, avoiding deeper details about her past. Daniel respected her boundaries, understanding that some stories needed time. Later, after everyone retired to their rooms, Daniel sat alone by the window. Snow fell steadily outside, covering the ranch in white. He wondered why he had stopped on that road. It was unlike him to invite strangers into his life, but something about Tala and her child felt familiar, not in identity, but in emotion. They carried the same quiet resilience he recognized in himself. In her room, Tala stayed awake longer than her daughter. She listened to the sounds of the house, the wind outside, and the distant movement of Daniel checking the doors. She felt both relief and uncertainty. Trusting someone new was difficult, but she sensed no danger here, only loneliness. Morning came slowly, bringing a soft golden light over the snow-covered land. The storm had not ended, but the ranch felt warmer than the cold world outside. For the first time in many days, Tala allowed herself to rest without fear. Daniel prepared breakfast quietly. When Tala entered the kitchen, their eyes met briefly, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. They were strangers sharing space, but something deeper had begun, a fragile connection built from kindness and necessity. Neither of them knew how long the storm would last or how their lives would change because of this meeting. But as Christmas approached, the ranch no longer felt as empty as it once had, and both carried a quiet sense that this unexpected moment might be the beginning of something neither had planned but both needed. Morning light slowly filled the ranch house, reflecting softly off the snow outside. The storm continued through the night, covering fences, trees, and fields in thick layers of white. The world felt quiet and distant, as if time itself had slowed down. Daniel woke early as usual, moving quietly through the house so he would not disturb his guests. For a moment he forgot he was not alone anymore. Then he noticed an extra pair of boots near the door and a small coat hanging beside his own. The sight made him pause. He stepped outside to begin his morning routine. The cold air bit at his face, but he welcomed it. Working with his hands helped clear his thoughts. He checked the animals first, making sure they had enough food and water. Snow crunched under his boots as he moved across the yard. Normally, these tasks felt automatic, but today he found himself thinking about Tala and her daughter. He wondered what kind of journey had brought them here. Inside the house, Tala woke slowly. For the first time in a long while, she felt warm and safe enough to rest deeply. Her daughter still slept peacefully, holding a small blanket close. Tala watched her for a moment, feeling relief mixed with uncertainty. She had learned not to trust situations too easily, but something about this place felt calm. She entered the kitchen carefully, unsure whether she would find Daniel there. Instead, she saw breakfast already prepared, simple food, nothing fancy but thoughtful. She smiled slightly, appreciating the gesture. She began washing dishes left from the night before, wanting to contribute rather than feel like a burden. When Daniel returned from outside, he stopped in the doorway, surprised to see her working. "You don't have to do that," he said gently. "I want to help," she replied. Her tone was calm but firm. Helping gave her a sense of control, something she had lacked during her journey. They shared breakfast quietly. Conversation came slowly, built on small observations rather than deep questions. Tala asked about the ranch, and Daniel explained how long it had been in his family. He spoke in short sentences, but there was pride in his voice when he described the land. Later that morning, Tala offered to assist with chores. Daniel hesitated at first, unsure whether she was ready for the cold weather, but she insisted. They walked together toward the barn, the child bundled warmly and watching everything with curious eyes. The barn smelled of hay and animals, a familiar scent that felt grounding. Tala moved carefully but confidently, showing she was not afraid of work. Daniel noticed how naturally she adapted to the rhythm of the ranch. She learned quickly, listening closely to instructions and asking thoughtful questions. As the day passed, an unexpected ease developed between them. They did not talk about personal matters, but shared effort created quiet trust. The child laughed while feeding the chickens, her joy echoing through the cold air and bringing warmth to both adults. Meanwhile, the storm continued, isolating the ranch from the outside world. The roads remained closed and the town felt far away. For Daniel, this isolation was normal, but for Tala, it created mixed feelings. She felt safe but also unsure about what would happen next. In the afternoon, Daniel drove into town briefly to check supplies and gather updates. Tala stayed behind, cleaning and organizing the house. She noticed small details, photographs turned face down, old decorations stored away, signs of a life once filled with more people. She did not touch anything personal, but she sensed the weight of loss that lived quietly within the walls. When Daniel returned, he brought small Christmas decorations from the store. He placed them on the table without explanation. Tala looked at them with surprise. "I thought maybe," he began, then stopped, unsure how to finish his sentence. "It's nice," she said softly. "Thank you." Together, they began decorating the living room. The child helped enthusiastically, placing ornaments carefully and laughing when they tilted sideways. The simple activity filled the house with new energy. For Daniel, it was the first time in years he had decorated for Christmas. That evening, they sat near the fireplace. The warmth of the fire and the soft glow of lights created a peaceful atmosphere. Tala finally shared small parts of her story, not everything, but enough to explain her journey. She spoke about searching for a safer place, about wanting a new beginning for her daughter. She avoided details that felt too heavy, but her strength showed through her words. Daniel listened quietly, respecting her pace. He did not offer advice or judgment, only understanding. He shared a little about his own past, losing people he loved and choosing solitude afterward. Speaking about it felt strange, but also freeing. Over the next few days, routine formed naturally. They worked together, shared meals, and slowly became more comfortable. Tala learned the rhythms of ranch life, while Daniel found himself enjoying conversation again. The child's presence brought laughter into spaces that had long felt empty. However, challenges appeared as well. When they visited town briefly during a break in the storm, some people welcomed Tala warmly, while others watched with curiosity or hesitation. Tala noticed the difference immediately. Being an outsider was something she knew too well. Daniel remained calm and supportive, introducing her respectfully and standing beside her during conversations. His quiet confidence helped ease some tension, but Tala still felt uncertain about whether she truly belonged. Back at the ranch, they talked about it. Daniel admitted that small towns could take time to accept change, but he believed kindness would eventually win over doubt. Tala listened, appreciating his honesty. As Christmas approached closer, the ranch felt different. The decorations, shared meals, and growing trust created a sense of family neither had expected. Daniel began to notice how laughter filled the evenings. Tala began to relax, allowing herself moments of peace she had not felt in a long time. One night, while watching snow fall outside, Daniel realized he was no longer counting the days until they left. The thought surprised him. He had invited them only for shelter during the storm, yet their presence had quietly changed his world. Tala also felt the shift. She noticed how Daniel's guarded nature softened slightly each day. He spoke more, smiled more, and seemed less alone. She wondered whether their meeting had been chance or something deeper. The child fell asleep early that evening, tired from playing outside. Tala and Daniel sat quietly by the fire, listening to the wind. Silence no longer felt uncomfortable. It felt peaceful. "Thank you," Tala said finally, "for giving us a place to stay." Daniel nodded. "You're welcome here as long as you need." The words carried more meaning than he realized. Tala felt warmth in her chest, not just from the fire, but from the sense of belonging slowly forming. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering the land in quiet beauty. Inside, two strangers who had met by chance were beginning to understand each other. Neither knew how long this chapter would last, but the connection growing between them made each day feel more hopeful than the last. The snow finally began to slow down after several days, but the world around the ranch was still covered in thick white layers. Fences were nearly buried, tree branches bent under weight, and the road leading toward town remained difficult to travel. Even though the storm was fading, a different kind of tension slowly entered the quiet rhythm that had formed inside the house. Daniel noticed it first in Tala's silence. She still helped with chores, still smiled when her daughter laughed, but sometimes her eyes drifted toward the road as if she expected something to appear there. She carried a small worry deep inside, and it showed in small ways, the way she double-checked the door at night, the way she paused whenever a truck engine sounded in the distance. Daniel did not push her with questions. He had learned that trust grows slowly, and forcing it only causes distance. But he could feel that something from her past had not fully released her. One afternoon, when the sky turned clear for the first time in days, Daniel decided to drive into town to restock supplies. Tala offered to come along. She said it would be good to stretch her legs and get fresh air beyond the ranch. Her daughter was excited at the thought of seeing Christmas lights again. The town looked peaceful under the snow. Store windows sparkled with decorations, and soft music played near the square. Children laughed as they built small snow figures. For a moment, everything seemed normal and calm. But as they walked near the grocery store, Tala's steps suddenly slowed. Daniel noticed her body stiffen. Across the street stood a man near a parked truck. He was not doing anything obvious, just standing there, but Tala's face changed completely. The calm expression she had learned to carry disappeared, replaced by alert caution. Daniel followed her gaze. "Do you know him?" he asked quietly. Tala did not answer right away. Her hand tightened gently around her daughter's shoulder. "He is someone from my past," she finally said. Her voice remained steady, but there was a layer of fear beneath it. The man looked in their direction briefly, but it was unclear whether he truly recognized her. After a moment, he turned away and walked into a nearby shop. Daniel could feel the shift in energy immediately. The peaceful town no longer felt as welcoming. "We can leave," he said calmly. Tala nodded. They returned to the truck without drawing attention. Daniel drove carefully back toward the ranch, watching the mirrors more than usual. The road remained empty, but the tension stayed in the air. When they reached home, Tala stood near the window for a long moment before speaking. "I left because I needed distance," she said quietly. "I wanted a life where my daughter could grow without constant worry." Daniel listened without interrupting. "I did not expect anyone to follow," she added. Daniel leaned against the wall, thinking carefully. "Are you sure he was following you?" he asked gently. "I do not know," she admitted. "Maybe it was coincidence, but seeing him reminds me that I cannot keep running forever." The words hung in the room. Daniel understood something about running, not physically, but emotionally. He had spent years hiding from pain, avoiding connection so he would not risk loss again. Tala's journey was different, but the feeling of carrying something heavy was the same. That evening, the house felt quieter than usual. Even the child sensed the change, staying close to her mother and asking fewer questions. Later, when her daughter had fallen asleep, Tala sat at the kitchen table. Daniel joined her with 2 cups of warm tea. "You do not have to leave," he said after a while. "I do not want to bring trouble to your door," she replied. "You did not bring trouble," Daniel answered firmly. "You brought life back into this house." The honesty in his voice surprised even him. Tala looked at him carefully. "You do not know what you are offering." "Maybe not," he admitted, "but I know what it feels like to be alone." Silence filled the space again, but this time it was thoughtful rather than tense. The next morning, Daniel made a decision. He drove to town alone to speak with someone he trusted, the local officer who managed road safety during storms. Daniel did not accuse anyone of wrongdoing. He simply asked whether any unusual activity had been reported. The officer assured him that nothing serious had been noted and promised to keep an eye on things. Daniel returned home feeling slightly reassured, but still aware that fear does not disappear just because someone says everything is fine. Meanwhile, Tala faced her own inner battle. She knew she could not live constantly looking over her shoulder. She wanted stability for her daughter. She wanted peace, but peace requires courage, and courage requires trust. That afternoon, she joined Daniel in repairing a section of fence damaged by snow. The cold air felt sharp but refreshing. Working side by side, they fell into a steady rhythm again. "Running feels safe," Tala said suddenly without looking at him, "but it also feels like never arriving." Daniel nodded slowly. "I stayed in one place," he replied, "but I was still running." She looked at him confused. "From memories," he explained. For the first time, Tala smiled gently. The conversation marked a turning point. They were no longer just sharing space. They were sharing truth. Over the next few days, Tala chose not to hide. When she went into town again, she walked confidently. If someone from her past was there, she would face it calmly. She had done nothing wrong. She had simply chosen a new path. Daniel stood beside her not as a rescuer but as support. The man she had seen earlier did appear once more at a distance, but this time there was no confrontation, no dramatic moment. He looked at her, hesitated, and then walked away. Perhaps he realized she had moved on. Perhaps he understood she was not returning. Whatever the reason, the shadow that had followed her began to fade. Back at the ranch, life slowly returned to its steady pace. Christmas was only days away now. Decorations glowed warmly in the windows. The child practiced simple songs she had learned in town, filling the evenings with soft music. Daniel found himself thinking differently. At first, he had believed their stay would be temporary. Now, he wondered what the ranch would feel like if they left. One evening, as snow began falling lightly again, Tala stood outside looking at the sky. Daniel joined her. "I am tired of running," she said quietly. He did not respond immediately. "I want my daughter to grow somewhere steady," she continued. "Somewhere she feels safe." Daniel felt his heart beat stronger. "This place is steady," he said simply. She turned toward him, searching his expression for doubt. She found none. Neither of them spoke about promises or future plans. They understood that life moves step by step, not in sudden leaps. But something solid had formed between them, not built from fear or obligation, but from shared strength. The storm had tested the land. The past had tested their courage. Now they stood not as strangers caught by weather, but as two people choosing to face life without running. Inside the house, the Christmas lights shimmered softly against the windows. The ranch no longer felt like a place of isolation. It felt like a place where healing was possible. The days moved closer to Christmas, and the ranch slowly changed in ways Daniel had not expected. What had once been a quiet place filled mostly with routine and silence now carried warmth, laughter, and small moments of joy. Snow still covered the land, but the heavy storms had passed, leaving behind clear skies and cold mornings that sparkled with sunlight. Tala woke early each day, often before Daniel, and helped prepare breakfast while her daughter slept. She moved around the kitchen with growing comfort, as if the space had started to feel like home rather than a temporary shelter. Daniel noticed these small changes but did not speak about them. Instead, he appreciated the feeling quietly. One morning, while drinking coffee near the window, he realized he was no longer counting the days until the roads reopened or wondering when Tala and her daughter might leave. The thought surprised him. For so long, he had protected himself by avoiding attachments. Now, without realizing it, he had allowed new connections to grow. Outside, the ranch needed repairs after the storm. Fences required strengthening and paths needed clearing. Tala insisted on helping. She worked with determination, learning quickly and moving with confidence. Daniel respected her strength. She was not someone who waited for others to solve her problems. She faced challenges directly. During their work together, conversations became more open. Tala shared stories about her childhood, about traditions passed down through her family, and about the lessons she hoped to teach her daughter. Daniel listened carefully, asking questions when appropriate. He wanted to understand her world, not just observe it. One afternoon, they took a break near the barn while the child played nearby, building shapes in the snow. Tala spoke about Apache traditions during winter, the importance of storytelling, community gatherings, and remembering ancestors through shared memories. Daniel found himself fascinated. He had lived in this region for years, but had rarely learned about the deeper cultural stories connected to the land. "I think people forget how important stories are," Tala said. "They help us remember who we are." Daniel nodded slowly. "I stopped telling stories a long time ago." She looked at him gently. "Maybe you just needed someone to listen." The words stayed with him long after the conversation ended. As Christmas approached, the town became more active. Markets opened, decorations brightened the streets, and people prepared for celebrations. Daniel suggested they visit together, not out of necessity but for enjoyment. Tala hesitated at first, remembering the uncomfortable looks from some townspeople earlier, but she agreed. The town square felt alive with music and laughter. Children ran between stalls selling handmade crafts, and warm lights hung across buildings. Tala's daughter held Daniel's hand without hesitation, pulling him toward a small stand where hot drinks were served. Daniel smiled more than he had in years, surprising himself again. Some townspeople greeted Tala warmly this time, recognizing her from previous visits. A few still watched from a distance, unsure or curious, but the atmosphere felt less tense. Kindness from others slowly replaced earlier doubt. Tala began to feel less like an outsider. They attended a small community gathering where people shared food and music. Daniel noticed how naturally Tala connected with others once she felt comfortable. She laughed freely, and her daughter joined other children in games. Watching them, Daniel felt something shift deep inside, a sense of belonging he thought he had lost forever. Back at the ranch, they continued preparing for Christmas. Tala taught the child songs from her heritage, while Daniel added his own traditions, such as decorating a tree near the fireplace. Together, they created new rituals that blended both their worlds. One evening, while hanging ornaments, Tala paused and looked around the room. "This place feels different now," she said softly. "It does," Daniel replied. She hesitated before speaking again. "I never planned to stay long anywhere. I thought moving was the only way to stay safe." "And now?" he asked. She took a deep breath. "Now I think safety comes from people, not places." Daniel felt the weight of her words. He understood that she was not just talking about physical safety, but emotional trust. Despite the growing closeness, both of them still carried quiet fears. Tala worried about becoming dependent on someone again. Daniel worried about allowing himself to care too deeply, afraid of future loss. These unspoken concerns created moments of hesitation, but they also made their bond more real. One snowy evening, they sat outside watching the sky turn shades of orange and purple as the sun set behind distant mountains. The child built small shapes in the snow nearby, her laughter echoing through the cold air. "I used to think being strong meant doing everything alone," Tala said. "And now," Daniel asked, "I think strength is knowing when to let someone stand beside you." Daniel looked at her, understanding more than he could express with words. Inside the house later that night, they prepared a simple dinner together. Music played softly in the background and the fire crackled gently. The atmosphere felt peaceful, almost sacred. Neither of them rushed the moment. The days passed quickly, filled with shared work and quiet joy. Tala began teaching her daughter small responsibilities around the ranch, encouraging independence while also showing care for the animals and land. Daniel watched with admiration. He realized that Tala's strength came not from avoiding hardship, but from facing it with calm determination. One afternoon, a package arrived from town, a small gift from a neighbor who had heard about Tala's journey and wanted to welcome her properly. Tala felt deeply moved by the gesture. It was a sign that she was no longer invisible or unwanted. Daniel noticed how her confidence grew each day. She walked with less tension, smiled more easily, and allowed herself to imagine a future beyond survival. As Christmas Eve approached, the ranch glowed with warmth. Lights hung across the porch, and the tree near the fireplace sparkled with ornaments collected over years and newly added pieces chosen together. The transformation of the house mirrored the transformation within them. That night, Tala sat by the window watching snow fall gently. "I think I finally understand something," she said. "What is it?" Daniel asked. "I spent so long searching for a place to belong that I forgot belonging sometimes grows slowly without planning." Daniel nodded, feeling the truth of her words. They sat in comfortable silence, aware that their lives had changed in ways neither had expected when they first met on that snowy road. The connection between them felt steady, built not from dramatic moments but from shared effort, respect, and kindness. Outside, snow continued falling softly, covering the land in quiet beauty. Inside, the ranch felt alive with hope and possibility. Christmas was only a day away, and both Daniel and Tala sensed that something important was about to unfold. Not a sudden change, but a gentle realization that healing had already begun, and that together they were building something strong enough to face whatever came. Next, Christmas Eve arrived quietly, wrapped in soft snowfall that covered the ranch like a peaceful blanket. The sky was pale and calm, and the air carried a stillness that felt almost magical. Inside the house, warm light from the fireplace danced against the walls, and the scent of fresh food filled the kitchen. Tala woke early, feeling a mix of emotions she could not fully explain. For the first time in a long while, she felt steady instead of restless. Daniel was already outside, finishing small chores before the day's celebration. He moved through the snow slowly, pausing now and then to look at the house. The lights in the windows gave it a welcoming glow, something he had not seen in years. He realized that the ranch no longer felt like a place he used only to hide from the world. It felt alive again. When he returned inside, Tala and her daughter were decorating cookies at the kitchen table. Flour covered their hands, and quiet laughter filled the room. Daniel watched for a moment before joining them. The child insisted he try decorating one too, guiding his movements with serious focus. The simple activity created warmth that spread through all three of them. As the morning passed, they prepared for the evening together. Tala cooked dishes that reminded her of her own traditions, while Daniel added recipes he remembered from earlier years. Their shared effort felt natural, as if they had done this many times before. Music played softly, blending with the crackling sound of the fire. Later in the afternoon, they stepped outside to hang a small wreath near the barn. Snowflakes fell gently, landing on their coats and hair. The child ran ahead, leaving small footprints behind. Tala watched her with a soft smile. "I never imagined a moment like this," she said quietly. Daniel glanced at her. "Neither did I. There was no need for long explanations. They both understood how far they had come since their first meeting on the road. What began as a simple act of kindness had grown into something deeper: trust, comfort, and a shared sense of belonging. As evening approached, the sky turned shades of pink and gold. A few neighbors arrived, bringing small gifts and warm greetings. The gathering was simple but heartfelt. People who had once been cautious now welcomed Tala with genuine kindness. She felt nervous at first, but Daniel stayed near her, offering quiet support without drawing attention to it. They shared stories around the fire, laughing and remembering moments from the past weeks. Tala spoke about her journey with honesty but without sadness. She focused on what she had learned: strength, patience, and the importance of finding people who truly listen. Daniel listened closely. Hearing her speak with confidence filled him with pride and admiration. He realized that she had not only found safety at the ranch, she had also brought healing into his life. After the neighbors left, the house grew quiet again. Snow continued falling outside, creating a peaceful silence. The child fell asleep early, tired from excitement. Tala covered her gently with a blanket before joining Daniel near the fireplace. They sat together without speaking for a while. The firelight reflected in Tala's eyes, and Daniel felt a calm warmth he had not known for years. "I used to think Christmas was only about memories," he said finally. "But now it feels like something new." Tala nodded slowly. "For me, it always felt like a reminder of what I did not have. This year feels different." She paused, searching for the right words. "It feels like a beginning." Daniel felt his heart beat faster. He had spent so long protecting himself from hope that allowing it now felt both beautiful and frightening. "There is something I want to say," he began carefully. He took a deep breath, choosing his words with care. "When I met you on that road, I thought I was only helping for one night. I did not expect my life to change." Tala listened quietly, her expression calm but attentive. "You and your daughter brought something back into this house," he continued. "You brought laughter, purpose, and peace. I did not know I still needed those things." He hesitated, unsure whether he was saying too much. "There's room in my heart again," he said softly. "Room for new stories, new people, for you if you want it." The words settled gently between them. Tala felt emotion rise inside her, but she remained calm. She had learned that real trust grows slowly, and she respected the sincerity behind his voice. "I was afraid of staying anywhere," she admitted. "I thought moving was the only way to stay safe. But here, I feel steady, not because of the place, but because of you." They shared a quiet smile. Neither of them rushed into promises. Instead, they allowed the moment to exist naturally, built on honesty rather than expectation. Later, they stepped outside together. The snow reflected moonlight, creating a soft glow across the fields. The world felt peaceful and endless. Daniel pointed toward the sky. "Look," he said. Stars appeared between drifting clouds, bright and clear. Tala felt a deep sense of calm. For the first time in years, she was not thinking about where she would go next or how to protect herself from the past. She was simply present. Inside, they exchanged small gifts, simple things chosen with thought rather than cost. Tala gave Daniel a handmade bracelet woven with colors representing strength and balance. He accepted it with quiet gratitude. Daniel gave her a small carved ornament shaped like a bird, symbolizing freedom and new beginnings. They returned to the fireplace, sitting close enough to feel each other's warmth without needing words. As midnight approached, a gentle sense of completion filled the air. Not an ending, but a turning point. The journey that had begun on a snowy road had led them here, to a place where both could stop running. The next morning, Christmas Day arrived with sunlight breaking through clouds. The child's laughter filled the house as gifts were opened and breakfast was shared. Daniel felt lighter than he had in years. Tala felt grounded in a way she had never experienced before. Later, they walked together across the ranch, leaving fresh footprints in the snow. The land stretched wide and open, full of possibility. "I don't know what comes next," Tala said. "Neither do I," Daniel replied. "But we'll figure it out." She nodded, feeling comfort in the simplicity of those words. The story did not end with dramatic changes or perfect certainty. Instead, it ended with something stronger, two people choosing to move forward together, step by step, building trust through everyday moments. As the sun set on Christmas Day, the ranch stood quiet and warm, no longer a place of loneliness but a home filled with hope. And in that quiet, both Daniel and Tala understood that sometimes the greatest gifts arrive unexpectedly, carried by storms, waiting for hearts willing to open again.